Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of Bobble Pod. And on this episode, I can say we're joined by another guest in the form of Andy Firth from a sensor agency. Welcome, Andy.
Morning, Manny. Thanks for having me.
So today's episode is all about tech leads to growth. It's a really important episode. Andy's going to be talking about their own tech within a sensor advantage, but it's really important to understand and grasp the idea of how building your own tech, using your own first-party data and how that can be used to grow your business. But before we begin, and as always, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe on any podcast streaming platforms. And if you're on YouTube, hello YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell notification so you can be updated on when the next episodes come out. So welcome, Andy. How are you doing?
Really good, thank you, for a Monday morning.
Yeah, it is quite early. We do record on a Monday morning, as our actual listeners do know. So tell me a bit about yourself. Who are you and what is a sensor?
Yeah, so I'm Andy Firth. A sensor's a digital agency. We've sort of focused our proposition and our branding around being a conversion agency. You know, we're not just providing digital services, it's digital services with a purpose. So focusing on driving the right traffic, but most important, converting that traffic through the software that we produce.
Fantastic. So when did you start a sensor? Tell me what the journey's been like so far, because you have just celebrated a big birthday this year, haven't you?
We have, yeah. So founded it in 2007. The year before, I'd set up an e-commerce business with a previous business partner, and we were just getting into the credit crunch. And so when you're selling products online where, you know, they're more of a luxury purchase, it was, you know, it was great for a little bit, and then it wasn't so great. So a sensor was really founded to go out to market and sell the software that we'd built for our own e-commerce business, and then moved on from there.
Fantastic. So you want to talk about a sensor advantage, which is a proprietary software for monitoring online activity, essentially. So first of all, just tell me, what is a sensor advantage? Break that down for me.
So advantage is really the productization of the activities and work that we do anyway. So when we're taking on a new client or working for an existing client, we do lots and lots of data mining to help them to gain a competitive advantage. And with the sort of advances of tech over recent years, the availability of data via API calls, we've started to build up a dashboard which enables us to effectively automate and systemize a lot of the stuff that we're doing anyway. So that's understanding how our clients or our prospects, competitors are performing. So for instance, in reviews, you know, if a business is getting bad reviews, it's really cool to understand why that might be, and you can turn that into an advantage for your client. There's loads and loads of stuff in there. But what we've also built is a Chrome extension as part of it, which is in beta at the moment. And that enables us to real-time monitor CRO tests that are going on online. So we can show our customers and our prospects what their competitors are actually testing, and ultimately which test wins out. So we can almost piggyback on the work that their competitors are doing. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I honestly, I keep saying, and hopefully our listeners and viewers have seen the trend of podcasts of probably the last 5-6 episodes where we've talked about everything from ChatGPT and business and marketing. We've talked about, obviously, you know, first party data and how that's changing with the episode That's Where the Cookie Crumbles, and how third party data is basically becoming irrelevant and being removed, to when we had Adam on talking about their tech and talking about customer engagement and acquisition and using that data from A to B, and now, you know, advantage, which looks at conversion rate optimization using tech to lead to better growth overall. And I've mentioned it myself with our Bobble Insights platform, which is in beta and well, just come out of beta and launching and got multiple stages, which will lead to our AI element right at the end of it as well. So when we talk about tech that leads to growth, we're talking about like tech, not just that you can buy and introduce into your company, like stuff like lead forensics or Google Analytics or anything like that. We're talking about how are you looking at your business? How are you going to change yourself from your competitors? I wouldn't say we're competitors because we're at different stages. You've been going for 15 years now. We've only been going for 5. We're at a completely different stage of agency life cycle. I know that we focus on our specific niche of services compared to your overarching, wider, sometimes broader elements. But it just goes to show that even in our space as agencies, we're innovative, coming up with tech to give our clients or to do something different in the industry, because it's that old adage, adapt or die.
Absolutely.
Essentially. And so tell me, we talked a little bit about how it works, but what's the unique USP of Ascent Advantage? What's its like, if you was to say, what's its unique selling point?
Well, I think that any business will be in our space is the advantage. I think for a sensor is our differentiation.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, there's 600-700 creative agencies within this region, and I think having something that is a talking point, something that you can market, creates some differentiation, some demand for yourself, and helps you with your own sort of branding for our own customers. So the idea with Advantage is not at this stage to actually provide it as any sort of SaaS product. It's for internal use, but the next stage of it is to provide it to agencies, so that an agency can be using the Chrome extension, for example, to monitor the activities of their clients or their prospects, competitors, and then we can start to build up between us as agencies a bit of a big data ecosystem, where what we're able to say, you know, we'll be able to generate market trends, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, we've done a piece of work recently looking at supermarkets, and we've presented to one supermarket what the other supermarkets have been testing over the Christmas and Black Friday period in terms of the structures of their site, their customer journeys. So we can then start to help one business to piggyback off the activity that these other businesses have not only paid for, but experienced potentially the pain of doing tests that didn't work, so their conversions were down. But most importantly, understanding what did work, so that our clients can really, you know, they've got a competitive advantage because they're utilising what the competitors are doing and getting their own changes fast into market faster.
I love that. How are you going to take it out to agencies? That's
Absolutely.
a good idea. And that's what it is. I was having this conversation with one of my NEDs, and we were talking about this Bobble Insights platform and elements in terms of what I'm trying to create. And he goes, you don't realize what you have. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, you have your agency and then you have a tech business as well. And I was like, what do you mean? I was still dumbfounded. He goes, you don't realize Bobble Insights is eventually going to become its own tech company,
Brilliant.
which you'll sell off its services as a platform. And I was like, okay, yeah. It was like, you know, light bulb. I was like, oh yeah, he's right. He goes, so you got to realize you've got your education element, which is our podcasts, our blogs, our bite size, me networking. Goes, that's going to be with you the whole way through. You go your agency side, and he goes, obviously you got the tech that's going to support the agency, but then you're going to end up creating a separate tech and creating it into its own custom platform, which would then be able to sell onto other agencies.
Brilliant.
To buy that tech. So that's what I mean. Tech leads to growth. Once you innovate, growth, and people don't realize it's like, you look at the pain points within the industry. So I'm assuming Sensor Advantage has come from where you've seen a lot of pain points and frustrations where you're like, right, we just need a tool that allows us to take all these elements in. That's what our tool does. It is like, well, what are the fundamental tasks that we need to be doing across all these different channels, and how can we create an optimization score for it, for everything, as opposed to how just Google does an optimization score just for Google, essentially. So we're like, no, how can we bring it all in, but then chop and change it so it's just, let's say, SEO and Meta, or just Meta and Google, or Meta and LinkedIn, or Bing and Google, for example. So all that data is there. So it doesn't matter what you focus your platform on, it's there. So the idea is that, but it came from a pain point of like, right, we need to streamline our growth, and we need to make sure that we're not, you know, this happens in agency life, is what happens is, and I get this from clients that come through to me, is that they say, oh, well, the previous agency, they just basically dropped off a cliff. Their reporting was taking too long. We weren't hearing from them. Performance was dropping off. Or performance was good, but we're just not hearing from the agency. Because it happens as bigger agencies, bigger clients come in, you tend to focus more on the bigger, high value item clients. But my viewpoint was like, that should never be the case. We should not have to compromise one client for another client. We can build something to ensure that remains. There's a constant level of service. You've got every single client, so there's something for everyone. Yeah. So even if a big client comes in, they're at a different tier of what happens, correct? But then that's an internal issue in terms of how we then do it. But that tech allows us then to forecast growth in terms of resource we need, what capacity are people at, etc. So tech leads to growth. I can't really stress that more importantly.
But I guess like us, you've developed that because of a need in your own business and look into how you can become more efficient and automate things. And then you see the wider potential of it. Yeah. So, there's an internal demand for these things, isn't there? You think, like, let's make life a bit easier for ourselves. We can connect this to this and stuff like that. And then before you know it, you've actually created something that is like, oh, right, now what can we do with it? Which is brilliant.
Yeah. And the same with obviously Sense Advantage. So what can other businesses benefit from it?
Well, I think the main beneficiary, I think from a census perspective, at the very top of the funnel, the ability for us to engage with a new prospect is great because we can sort of show them something that it's almost like a no-brainer, because whenever we talk to our prospects about what their competitors are doing and what they're doing, sometimes their own marketing teams don't necessarily know what's going on. They want to talk further. That's been helping us to win new clients and bigger clients. But then once we get a client on board, it's that ongoing, I guess, sort of data science, keep our continuous understanding of where they are in the market. So, for instance, I mentioned reviews before. There's lots of other things that we're looking at, such as potential gaps in domain name ownership, so that they're protecting their own real estate and their own brand name. Obviously, the standard stuff around rankings and visibility and all of that sort of stuff. But I think the most important thing for us is understanding from a conversion rate perspective where pages are performing maybe worse than they were before. Are there, there's a really cool book, you've probably read it, called Don't Make Me Think, about building websites to, not challenge, there's a standard ways of doing things. And we're always a little bit concerned when a customer wants to do something that's a little bit off the wall, because generally these things do not work. There are standard ways of doing things, but then within that, there's obviously lots of different variables and parameters and things that you can do around, where buttons are positioned and stuff like that, what's above and below the fold, how much information you give somebody before you take them down more of a funnel into taking action, whether that's a lead or a purchase. So I think from that side of things, I think that, understanding what's actually going on from a user experience perspective, we can help businesses get to a quicker point of accelerated conversion than they would do without it.
Yeah, in our previous episode, we were talking about the whole conversion funnel and how, even though you identify who your customer is, it's not about making noise, because noise is actually bad for the industry. Yeah. It's about making the right noise for your customer to get them engaged. So the trend was customer engagement and acquisition. So essentially, it's a good, these two episodes, because the last episode talks about that whole top of the funnel elements, and what you're talking about is really at the bottom of the funnel, the elements, because what happens after they've been on the website? Yeah. What is those elements? And they're both just as important. And I highlighted this to Adam, our last guest, where I discussed, we look at the funnel from multiple touch points to website, then multiple touch points to conversions. Because in terms of the core services we offer, which is media services, including SEO, it's we need to understand, where are they on that journey? Why are they not, if they're adding to basket, why they're not completing? If they're going to the website, why they're dropping off? Was it the right customer or not customer? What kind of content was working to get them to the website, etc.? How is your work on the whole element of understanding the whole CRO point of view and tech? So these are the elements and tech that even we use. We use stuff like, Lunio to protect us from ad fraud. We use tech like SpyFu, Semrush, all these kind of insight platforms like Chrome extensions like Built With, to understand what the tech is being used into elements, Screaming Frog, etc. So you have to invest into tech externally to grow, to help keep yourselves a competitor advantage within the marketplace. But then what really separates the best from the average is where you create your own tech. And I'm not saying that every business that's listening or any business out there has to create their own tech. What I'm saying is that you have to look at ways of, using that first party data, understanding what your pain points are, and creating processes or tech elements that are going to take you from one stage to another stage. So are there any elements that you would like to wrap up with any like advice or support you would like to give to our listeners before we wrap up?
I mean, I just think the advice is online software should never ever stand still.
Yeah.
When you're having a website developed for yourselves, or you're developing your own website, however you're doing it, you should always expect to have like an evolutionary process. As experienced, in 15 years, we've built a lot of stuff, and with the best will in the world, you can never understand what the final user journey is going to be like. That monitoring of ongoing of traffic onto the site. We use Hotjar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're sort of monitoring user behavior. You never really see what you never really know what's going to happen until that site's live. So you should be expecting to evolve it. And that's the process of conversion rate optimization. These days we tend not to do full wholesale changes of websites. What we prefer to do is evolve an existing site into a new one. And at least through that evolutionary process, you're evolving a site because you're squeezing more and more conversion out of it. Yeah. When you do come to have a new site built at some point in the future, you might, the underlying code base or the architecture might need to change because from a version perspective, you've got security concerns and stuff like that. So there might be a reason for changing the underlying architecture. Hopefully from a user experience perspective, generally it's like an evolution.
Yeah.
As you're building a brand online, the last thing you want to do is give your customers a complete shock. You look at sites like Amazon, it's evolved massively in 20 years. From
books to now being a tech leader.
But it really hasn't changed that much. If you think about that, that interface, it really is. If you compare 20 years ago, it's changed massively. But if you compare it to last year or the year before, it's evolved, and that's the way we prefer to work, and we recommend that businesses have got online software work. And using tools like Advantage, we're able to help clients evolve in the right way, i.e. a way that's going to generate more bang for their marketing buck.
Yeah. So tech leads to growth, everybody. Simple as that. Just look at the examples around you. If you want to learn more, then do reach out to us. I want to first of all thank Andy for joining us. Thank you for taking the time out to join us and talking about that whole process of developing tech and leading it and what it's led for you and your agency as well. And hopefully it gives some insight and knowledge and some thought-provoking ideas for our listeners in terms of, those that have been joining us on this podcast series and journey. I'd like to thank our listeners. If you have any questions, don't forget to reach out to us at Bobble Digital using the hashtag at Bobble Digital or the hashtags Mr. Bobble, Ask Bobble, or hashtag Bobble Pod. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to catching you on our next episode. Cheers. Bye.